Today, we're going to be talking about something that I know is near and dear to your heart and also something you've thought a lot about. And that is your newly branded, but very, very mature and well researched system, Soil First. So,
Yeah.
Abe, tell us a little bit about what Soil First is and what who does it help? What does it do for the world? What does it do for your customers?
The neat thing about Soil First is when you really look at it, I was researching this as well. I was building this platform and I really want to focus on the soil first. That's why we called it that. And you're going to want to look at a lot of things: soil structure, you want to look at pH management, organic matter, CEC levels, all these extra things. And the neat thing about Soil First, which is utilizing carbon sources, manures, ag limes, other calcium products like gypsums and whatnot, is the guys that are in these national yield contests, they're using that. They don't say it, but they use that in their systems. They're not farming like conventional farmers and looking at only phosphorus or potassium and nitrogen amounts. They're looking at all these different things. And what I'm trying to do with Soil First is I'm trying to make it a usable system that every farmer can utilize, not having to be highly managed, but also I do think that a farmer, this is kind of helping them determine what management level they need to have to put their soil in a situation where they can be highly productive and efficient.
Got it. Got it. So, what is it? What is the Soil First system?
Essentially, Soil First system is we start with what we want to call, we've got three pillars that we came up with. And the first one is renew, right? So we want to renew your soil. We want to, just like if you're going to rebuild an engine, you want to rebuild this engine to its maximum performance for the future. We want to look at the soil structure and make sure that we have our system set up for air and water management, right? So all of the microbes in the soil that make nutrients available are mainly aerobic microbes, which means they have to live in an environment that allows oxygen. If your soil is packed tight, or if it's tight enough where it holds too much water in the profile, oxygen can't go in, and the microbes can't survive. So then the system is not cycling like the way Mother Nature designed it. So that's the one thing we want to do, is get the system set up, proper organic matter levels, proper structure, all of your clay particles structured right so oxygen and water can flow through. And then we want to get your CEC levels good, which some of those are hard to change, right? Some of that is based off of your soil type. If it's a good soil type, it'll have a higher CEC, but which CEC is the cation exchange capacity, right? So that is what that is that determines the amount of positively charged ions your soil can hold at one time. So manures, compost, organic matter does affect that, but it's not, a lot of your CEC level is affected by your soil type. So we want to have all of those categories in that renew system reviewed. We want to look at your soil test first. We want to understand all of the different nutrient contents, the organic matter percentage, and all those factors we just talked about are in check and in line where they kind of need to be, so that system can function properly. So once we have that engine tuned up, we overhauled the motor. All of our stuff is set up right. Then what we want to do is then we're looking at fuel, right? So fueling the system, just like a motor, you don't want to overfuel it and you're going to blow it up, or you don't want to underfuel it and you're looking at maximum or minimum performance. You want to put on the nutrients at the right time and the right place where they need to be, right? So a lot of what we're talking about to start out would be when you plant crops, it's really nice utilizing some sort of starter fertility. I've had a lot of people say, I don't know if it yields. We've checked it back and forth, and once in a while it doesn't yield to use starter. It's a pain in the butt. Starter fertilizer is kind of like colostrum for any baby, whether it's a calf or a human or whatever. A baby needs colostrum. It needs those antibodies. It needs that extra protein and things from mama, right? And so your young plant needs that from its soil. It needs the extra proteins. It needs the extra nutrients. It gives it defense, right? So starter fertilizer is kind of a defense package. Not all the time are you going to be needing that at every moment, but it's nice to have defense when you need it, right? So the next thing you're going to want to look at is your nutrient, your nitrogen amounts. Most farmers farm. It's a very logistical business. We all are in that. I agree. It is for me too. And it's hard to separate out the nutrient applications to when they are actually needed. But so most farmers come in and say, I'm just going to front load all of my nitrogen up front. And when you front load all of your nitrogen up front, you put it in a situation for lack of efficiency, meaning it could volatilize, which means it would vaporize to the air. It could leach out and go down to cause water quality issues. And then maybe it might stay there, but you've got a chance for it to leave. Well, most of your nitrogen is not utilized by the plant until later on in the season anyway. So we put it all up front because it's most convenient. The best way to manage it would be to put like 50% up front and then have one or two more applications later. What I'm preferring on is to put 50% up front, 15% probably right after planting or at planting, and then another 35%, a few weeks out. Vegetative stages probably 6 or 7 leaves out. So that will give us some nitrogen boost to later in the season. It's going to help us with efficiency. And then through your soil tests, you're going to look at, okay, do I need phosphorus, potassium, any of their micronutrients, and kind of fuel that system. So those are the main things that you're looking at in that fuel part. Another thing that we're also looking at is, do we have an active biological system? Because most of the nitrogen, most of the nutrients that we feed our crops come from the soil, right? We feed supplements, but a lot of it is cycled in the system. And what did we talk about early on? If you don't have microbes, your system's not cycling. If you don't have the oxygen or the water or the right things right, you don't have a cycling system. What happens if you eat food and after taking antibiotics and all the biology in your gut is dead, right? You have a hard time utilizing that nutrition. A lot of times you'll pass it because your body can't absorb it. So you'll pass a lot of those nutrients through, and it takes a while for your gut to get that reestablishment of microbiology. The soil is one big gut. So having some sort of way to stimulate that gut, it'll make your nutrients absorb right. It'll kick you a little further down the road. Again, it'll get you more performance. It'll get you more a plant that is healthy, that is vigorous, that is ready to grow a leaf, right? So we've done that. We've structured our soil. We've got a good root mass going. And then we're going to get to the spot where we're growing vegetative state. And what we want to do in that vegetative state is get the biggest, greenest leaf that we can. Picture a corn leaf as a solar panel, right? So the bigger it is, it's going to attract sunlight, and when the sunlight is captured by a plant, it is actually bringing in carbon. People don't realize that, but it's bringing in different kinds of energy to that plant. So the big healthy plants are going to have a big leaf, big solar panels collecting all this energy. It'll get us down to the reproductive stage. And that is where we're looking at earning. That is our third pillar to our soil first system. We've got renew, fuel, and now we're ready to earn. If we don't manage that soil or that crop at the end of the factory, then you're not going to have the fill. You're going to grow all the plant and leaf, and it's going to look great, and you're not going to get that top end performance. And that's why we'd like to come in again and either look at potentially a foliar application of fertilizer, but more importantly, you're going to be looking at another microbial activator that will activate plant's defense mechanisms. It'll help the plant activate its reproduction system and assimilate more nutrient, which means take nutrient from the soil. It'll call out through its root exudates. It'll call out to the soil with its roots and put out little acids. And that acid is calling for these microbes in the soil to bring me food. So then it pulls it up, and then it's able to metabolize it. These activators, I would call them, will seek out that nutrient. Another thing we want to do at that point is protection. If we have a disease issue that year, you may want to look at some sort of fungicide or bacterial-cide to help keep that plant nice and green. So at the end of that, hopefully we're earning that in bushels. But I talked a lot. I'm going to let you ask me some questions now, but you asked soil first, and that's what we are.
Yeah, it's fantastic information. I'm sure that'll help a lot of people. What do you see the differences in farms that are using this program? What's the difference between before and after?
So the difference before, normally farms that aren't being as productive or hitting a top end yield are going to have tight soil particles. Their soil is going to be really kind of tight and hard together. That's going to limit their root mass, and then it will limit their nutrient uptake. So usually you'll see soils that just aren't very active. Their residue's not going away. You can tell by looking at residue that it's just not deteriorating, and then also the soil's very hard. So that's one thing you'll notice, and then that will show up in yield down the road. The other thing you'll notice is that the plants, during stress times, during maybe higher bacterial disease vectors and stuff coming in, maybe during a drought situation, drought stress, soils that are not being taken care of to their maximum potential will suffer more from those other environmental issues that we cannot control, right? We cannot control the weather. We cannot control whether or not we're going to have vectors coming through the air from other disease. So the only thing we can control is that we give that plant a great environment to start in, to keep itself nutritious and full, and then protect itself from these potential hazards of drought or disease or whatever.
Got it. So that all results in what sounds like more yield, better economics for the farm. And in our previous conversation, I heard you talk about legacy and how your systems and the work that you're doing helps set farms up for long-term success, for soil health that is generational, or it can be generational. Is that the purpose for designing Soil First? What made you want to create a program like this?
You know, that is one of the purposes, and whether that's generational for the owner today or just humanity in general, right? If we don't take care of the soils that we have, we do not have maximum productivity. We do not have longevity. We break down the organic matters quicker if we overload nitrogen, or if we're not, if we let too much erosion happen, too much tillage or whatever, don't have this system working right. The organic matter will slowly drop, and those soils become slowly less productive. Over time, you know, the United States is a fairly young country. If you look at it in the world, we're one of the last ones to really be developed.
250, baby.
What's that?
It's 250 this year.
Exactly, 50 years. And these other countries that have been around for a lot longer, probably 2 or 3, maybe even a couple centuries longer, they farm different than we do. And the biggest reason is that one of the things that they look at a lot is they're looking at manure, compost, and those things more and more, because they have to. They have to keep that soil alive and moving. They've burned their soils out. And I feel like they're figuring out how to grow these crops and bring their soils back. And I think that we don't have to go down that road as in the United States. If we recognize the problems that we could be seeing and manage our systems differently. the other person that's really going to benefit from this in longevity, right, is as a farming community, most farmers really want to pass on a legacy of soil or just hard work to their families. We work really, really hard, and you really don't get paid very much. You get paid in the soil being paid off at the end of your career. And if at the end of the day, you don't want that to be a worn out old Chevy sitting in the weeds when you give it to your kids. You're going to want it to be, a revamped, a renewed Mustang sitting over there that they can take a hold of and produce for their family. And managing the soil and farming with the soil first in mind is going to do that for you.
I would prefer a Mustang than a beat up old Chevy
I'm
sure.
more of a Camaro guy, or maybe even a Corvette. So probably a Corvette.
Okay, all right. An old Corvette Stingray is better
There you
than an
go.
old
Yep.
beat up Chevy, anyways. Old beat up Chevy truck.
That's right.
That might be controversial to some, though. So, Abe, you've got a really good system. It produces a lot of great results for people. And obviously, you've thought this through. How do you support in this? If you're working with the farmer, you've got this all laid out. Somebody could listen to this podcast or this video and watch this video and go and apply it themselves. What is it that you help farmers navigate through the process of essentially getting their soil ready for long-term growth and continued upside?
We've really started looking at soil testing a little bit differently than typical university research has done. Typically, you take a soil test, you look at the phosphorus and potassium and pH, and those things are all part of it. But we are looking at different ratios, calcium to magnesium ratios. We're looking at phosphate to zinc ratios. We're looking at CEC levels, your total base saturation, calcium, magnesium. So we want to take a sample of your farm and really kind of check its vitals, see what you have going on, see how we can first kind of renew that system, starting out with the bases and not so much fertilizer. Fertilizer should be in the fuel category, and that's going to be kind of next. Now, we might need to put a little bit on anyway, even while we're working ourselves through that renew situation, but fuel should be later in the category. So that's the first thing we want to do is take a soil test and analyze it and understand what it is and give it a score, right? Where do we, how long is it going to take to get it out of the situation? What do we need to do first?
Got it. So you want to have the correct data to be able to work with.
Correct. Yep.
So how does this system work across different crops? You mentioned some specific things there, some specific applications of nitrogen, for example, starting the season off with 50% and then applying it 15% later, and then at another time applying the rest. How does that vary crop by crop, and how do you help people understand that?
Yep. So, what we're trying to do, Iowa, corn is king, right? Everybody wants to grow corn in Iowa. That's what we're known for, corn and pigs. And so soybeans and other crops have become more of just a rotation crop. It's nice to we need to have a rotation so we can get out of some of these disease problems that we've talked about here recently. So if we manage our system to grow a really great corn crop and we look at all of those nutrient levels in the soil to grow maximum corn, soybeans and alfalfa and other things we decide to grow are really going to fit right in that same wheelhouse. Minus, you don't need nitrogen, right? Nitrogen's only going to be from a more of a grass crop, which is going to be corn or grasses or those things. But we do need to, at managing this system. I mean, I think most people understand that you really don't need nitrogen if you got a good healthy system for a legume crop, which would be alfalfa or soybeans because they can fixate their own if you have your system healthy.
Got it. So you have different different systems for different crops, but
Yep. We still, we still want to manage our microbials, manage the microbial activity. And I really think that if there's a takeaway from here that people need to understand is that the first thing most people look at is just they're scared to death not to put, they don't want to put any, they're like, oh man, if I don't put this dry fertilizer P and K on here, I'm not going to have a crop. Well, we've been forced into kind of thinking that way, and I think we've been taught that way. But if we don't have a good system to, again, referring back to taking some antibiotics, if we don't have a good healthy gut biology, we can eat all the food that we want and we're not going to be able to utilize it, right? So no matter what system we're working on, I want you to think about microbial stimulants and plant activators that are going to activate that plant to go help it digest these materials, metabolize them.
Gotcha. So, I mean, do you have any recommendations on plants, if there's a farmer listening to this, on some microbial stimulants that they could utilize for their operation?
That's a great question. That is a $1 million question, I'm going to tell you. And I think everybody watching this will probably smile. And you're not an agronomist, and I love the questions because you have awesome ones. But there's microbial products out everywhere. Everybody's got one. It seems like as soon as it became popular, everybody's trying to jump on that bandwagon. There are a lot of really good products out there, I will say, and there are a lot of products that maybe are just on the market, and I don't know. They're maybe more finicky. You can't leave it out in the sunlight, or you can't let it sit mixed together in your sprayer tank very long, or you can't let it freeze. You can't let it get too hot, and a lot of those are based around because they're active biology in those. Those scare me because we all understand that agriculture is a working system, and we got so many things that revolve around Mother Nature's involvement. And sometimes she'll get in the way. We can't get the crops in when we need them, or we can't get the sprayer tank empty when it needs to be because it rained when we're in the field. And if you don't put those materials on at exactly the right time, exactly the right way, they're probably not going to work. So I'm very nervous about utilizing some of these live active biology products unless if you can just really be exact with it. And then there's other products that might say that they've got activators, or they've got another they're humic acids and fulvic acids. We recommend them. We recommend humic and fulvic acids, and we have them in part of our system. But there's a unique product that I've been looking at, and it's made from a fermentation process of fermentating plant products, plant parts, and food waste or anything like that. And it's an organic product. It's called BioFerm, and it's owned by BioXRG. They're a startup company, and this product, you can freeze it, it's going to work the same way. You can boil it and cool it back down, it's going to work the same way. It is not a microbial. So, and it has about 9,000 different plant activators and microbial nano acids and stuff in it. It's all of the way I want to explain it, and it's kind of in like a farmer's term, right? It's in our terms here. This was kind of product was made to like mimic a cow's gut. So a cow's gut, the biology in it, and the biology in the soil are very similar. It's kind of strange, maybe not strange. Maybe it's the way it was designed by Mother Nature. When a cow would defecate on the grass, right, when it's walking around, or a buffalo way back in the day. Maybe the biology and the acids and everything that were inside that cow's gut that comes out would re-inoculate the soil and stimulate it to be something that's active. And that's why you would see grass growing really, really well around a cow pie. You can see these little pockets of grass growing really good in the pasture that's not fertilized with nitrogen because you're stimulating that system. So this product was kind of designed and based off of about 30 years of research on the bacteria in a cow's gut. And so it's really kind of unique and it kind of mimics that. So we're able to apply this product in furrow. And we've got even we can show some pictures of that if they can break it into this video. But, it's got some root growth that you just can't believe. When you're looking at side by side, cross the fence trials, the root growth is higher. And then the plants just stay healthy longer. But we're applying it once in furrow, once about 3 feet of V3 to V7 vegetative state. And then we're also applying it by a VT to R1, somewhere R3, somewhere in that category. And it really just kind of turns on nutrient assimilation. It turns on nutrient metabolization. And like I said, it's an organic product. It's a fermented product, and it just activates plant enzyme, or it activates the plant to go ahead and go to work. So it's called BioFirm, BioXRG, and that's the one that we've now. We're going to try it. We're going to use it. I've seen a lot of results at it. They look good. One thing I want to say, Beckett, when you're looking at any of these products, there's no silver bullet. You can't say this is the one thing that's going to get you everything you've been looking for. It does not work that way. You can't only work out your triceps and have a nice looking body, right? You're going to have one big old muscle there, and you're not going to be very active. You need to work on the whole system, work on your entire body if you want to be in maximum performance. And so if you don't do something else right and you put on BioFirm, you might say, oh, it didn't work, right? You do have to start with the soil first and then move yourself through the system, and it's going to work a lot better, and everything has to work together in a system. But this microbial stimulant, I like it because it's safe, it's sound, it's solid, and it's showed some results in my opinion. And it's based around biology. It's based around the biology of a cow's gut. So that's why we're looking at it, and we think that it's a good product to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will be looking into that after hearing how you've described this. And you're talking about the leg day of fertilizer right here. You can't skip it. You got to have all different parts of both the triceps, the legs, the core, all of that.
Yep.
But some things do different. I mean, all things do different things. They serve different purposes. So I'm sure people will be happy to look into that. And what did you say the company was? You said BioXRG?
BioXRG. It's actually a brand new company. It's a startup company out of Texas. I don't even know if they have a website yet, but they will. They're moving along really, really well. And I think they've got a neat product. And there's some other ones out there too. That's just one that we're looking at. We're also looking at some products from Redox, which is a company out of Idaho. And so there are a lot of good products out there. And then there's a lot of just like big money, blow off the marketing socks type of products that I don't want to say good or bad about any of them, but I think that it's a little too scary to use because they only work in certain situations. But yeah.
Makes sense.
Beckett, we made a comment about you not being an agronomist. And I think it's really, really cool that you guys are interested in what we're doing, because farming is not glamorous, but farming is necessity for the world, right? It is imperative that we grow crops so everybody can eat. And the one thing I want people to understand that we look at in Soil First or at natural fertilizer or through our winter centers is we're trying to connect the average person, consumer of food, back a little bit to agriculture. And it used to be a lot different back in the day. When I was a kid, we grew up on an acreage, right? And a lot of people grew up on farms. And when we had wasted food or things like that, we'd throw it over the fence and let the microbes eat it in the soil, or we'd feed it to our hogs or something like that. And those nutrients would be reutilized again. And today, we don't get that opportunity as humans to be able to contribute like that, right? A lot of our banana peels and everything else, and a lot of the waste streams that are generated through food processing are not utilized properly. So, but yeah, so that, Beckett, I think will be one of our next conversations. I'm sure we're going to talk about our winter centers. That was kind of a teaser for that.
Yeah, it's a great teaser, and I do care because I do eat food, and I think that it's you're really bringing us back to our roots as well. Human beings have our or because of the way that things have been set up for us today, it's very easy to forget where our food comes from and how Mother Nature was intending things to work. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with the way that we're doing things nowadays, but it's important to remember how things were functioning and how a nutrient cycle does work.
You know, humanity has evolved. That's just the way that it is, and it's never going to stop, right? But I would say if you look back in all of our histories, all of our ancestors at some point were somewhat of a farmer, where they grew crops to sell, or they grew crops to eat. I would say almost every single one of our ancestors that are listening on this radio show had some sort of knowledge about agriculture and farming back then because they had to eat. Today, we've got 2% of the people in the world that are farmers, that are growing all the food for 100% of the people in the world that eat it. So we have to be extremely productive. And I think that over time, we have pushed, maybe more of our systems of how we farm became more chemistry focused. So we could, because that's the easiest part. That's the easiest part in this world to manage is the chemistry side. And really on a good, healthy soil system, you need to manage all aspects. And that's the things we were talking about was the structure of the soil, which is your physical components of it. We also need to manage the biological situation of the soil and how the microbes are breaking down and consuming and feeding that crop. And then the chemistry is also one of them. And I think chemistry is the easiest because it's just like supplementation for our bodies, right? It's a lot easier to take blood work and say, hey, Beckett, you need more potassium. Go to the pharmacy, get a potassium supplement, take it. It'll bring your levels back. It's easier doing that than saying, hey, Beckett, I actually think you should probably eat more bananas, right? Because that's got potassium in it, and that will increase your potassium levels. So we've really become, and that would also feed your biological system that your body thrives on. So we've really become more chemistry involved in agriculture because it was easy, and we're looking for fast growth, and how do we do it with less people? And I think now, with what we're doing, trying to really bring all of these resources back, we're trying to make total soil system management happen on a larger scale, so everybody can do it someday.
I mean, it's very important work, and you hear people talk about human biology so much. I saw a podcast clip the other day where somebody was talking about how everybody takes magnesium to sleep. So there's different types of magnesium, and this doctor was essentially explaining that if you take magnesium, I think it's L-threonate, before you go to sleep, what we don't know is that in order for magnesium to be processed in your body, it requires your brain to be functioning. It requires neural synapses to be firing, and you have a lot of electricity flowing through your body for magnesium to be processed and its highest efficiency, sort of what you're talking about. And you're explaining how something like the soil, which feeds all of us directly, well, indirectly, but through the direct production of crops, how we can manage that and how we can think about it. So I think it's very interesting. I think it's important for us to have more conversations like this. In addition to that, it's something that has implications for everybody. It's one of the few topics that we can discuss that says, okay, well, how does this affect everybody? How can we do something that if we do it better, if we put our minds together, if we apply principles that are based on making things net positive, it affects everybody for the better.
So if you've watched if anybody's watched any more of our clips, you've noticed that my theory of successful business management is that everybody has to win, right? I've said that before, and that's what I love about what I do is if this is done correctly, there's not a single loser in the game. And even the consumers way down the line are winning from this, right? And it trickles its way all the way back. So it's
Totally.
really
Healthier food
something
for
to be
consumers.
involved
Yeah.
in that kind of environment. And I just am truly passionate about it. And I hope that, we can look back on our career someday and say we had a very successful career because we made a lot of differences in a lot of ways. And that's what we're trying to.
Yeah. Trying to. I can't wait till this is a larger conversation. We're going to be talking, more and more people are going to be interested, but you're going to be talking about this, and it's going to grow and it's going to grow and it's going to grow because it does touch everybody. The end consumer will be healthier, probably happier, and have a longer lifespan. That's probably higher quality of life because of what you talked about today and what you've
Yeah.
dedicated your work to.
The really neat thing is right now, the timing, Beckett, is look at where the government's going right now, right? Some of the policies, you may or may not like all the politicians we have out here. And I think that it doesn't matter what president we had, there's always people that like or don't like people. But the one thing I'll say is that one of the good things that I can see happening right now is they are really kind of focusing a little bit on soil health and regenerative agriculture. I'm not one of them guys that wants to say, oh, we got to be 100% organic, everything, even on commercial crops and this and that. I think there's great systems that we can do in large production agriculture, but we need to get away from just putting, sometimes I call it the moron theory, right? Just putting on more fertilizer, and we just call ourselves the morons, So I'm hoping that we can get ourselves away from that and think about it more of an ecological system than just a big old nutrient sponge.
I like that, Abe. That is funny. The moron theory
Neuron,
is something that will probably stick.
It's kind of tough once in a while. I call myself that too. It's like, do I think I need this, or am I just being a moron? You're right. I mean,
Yep.
so it's just,
that applies to so many things.
That's true. That's true.
This.
Yeah.
This is great. Okay, Abe, well, I'm sure people are going to want to ask you questions about this stuff. So if they want to ask you questions, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can get on our website at www.naturalfertilizerservices.com and send me an email, asandquist@nfsbc.com. And it'd be great. Call the office even, 712-592 or 712-647-2810.
Awesome. All right, Abe. Well, thank you. And I'm sure we'll be having some more conversations. And,
this is fun to do, Beckett. So we've got some more things we'd like to discuss in the future. But remember, just if you want to make some good yields, start with the soil first.
I will. Thank you, Abe. Appreciate you.